Hi there. If you're dealing with harassment, trying to report it can feel like a mountain to climb, right? It's just overwhelming. Well, in this explainer, we're going to give you a really clear, step-by-step game plan for reporting harassment to the police here in England. This is all based on our first-hand experience as solicitors at Cohen Davis, so let's jump right in.
Look, if you're watching this, chances are you're feeling frustrated, maybe a bit ignored, and honestly, probably helpless. We get it. We really do. And I want you to know you are absolutely in the right place to start finding a way through this.
Okay, so let's start with a bit of a reality check. And this is something we see all the time in our work. The police in England, well, they're likely to turn down your first request to look into online harassment. Now please don't let that get you down. Seriously. Just knowing this fact is your first big advantage. It's how we start building a case they can't ignore.
So here's our game plan for today. First, we'll talk about the reality of reporting. Then we'll get into building your evidence file, making your official report, and what to do when you get pushback. After that, we'll look at what happens after you file, and finally, the big difference between police power and court orders.
All right, first up, the reality of reporting and why you really need to be prepared. So why do the police sometimes seem, well, reluctant? I promise you, it's almost never personal. It's not about you or how serious your case is. It really comes down to limited resources. And once you get that, you'll know exactly how to approach them with the right amount of patience and, a healthy dose of persistence.
And this really breaks it down, doesn't it? The police are just swamped. Think about it. A massive number of online harassment cases, not enough money, not enough people, and these investigations can get super complicated. So what's our goal here? It's to hand them a case that is so well organized, so clear, and so thoroughly documented that they simply can't put it aside.
Okay, which leads us perfectly to our next section, building your evidence file. This is the foundation of your entire case. Seriously, this is your first and most powerful move. A solid evidence file is everything. It's what makes them sit up and take you seriously right from the get-go.
So what goes in this file? Basically, you're doing the initial detective work for them. First, gather everything. I mean, everything. Screenshots of messages, emails, social media posts, all of it. Then, document every single URL, every website address, any clue you have about where the harasser is. Next, organize it. This is huge. Put it all into a timeline, with dates so they can see the story of what's been happening. And finally, identify anything you know about the person. Contact info, online handles, different personas they use. You're basically handing them a starter kit for their investigation. And here's a pro tip. It sounds simple, but it is absolutely non-negotiable. Always make 2 copies of that file. One copy goes to the police, and the other one stays with you. Why? Because police files can be tied up for ages, or, believe it or not, sometimes they just get lost. You've got to protect all that hard work, so keep a copy for yourself.
Okay, you've got your evidence file ready to go. Now it's time to take action. Let's talk about making that official report, because how you do it really matters.
Now, you've got a couple of options here. You could report through Crime Stoppers, but honestly, it's anonymous, it can easily get lost in the shuffle, and you lose that human connection. Based on what we've seen with our clients, the most effective way by far is to go to a police station in person. When you're physically there, you can look an officer in the eye, you can argue your case, and you can show them just how serious this is. It makes it so much harder for them to just brush it off.
All right, let's talk about how to handle pushback, because even when you go in person, you might still get some resistance. And yeah, it's incredibly frustrating, but if you're prepared for it, you'll know exactly what to do. This is about making sure you're heard.
Okay, so what do you do if they seem reluctant? First, do not back down. You have a right to report a crime, and make no mistake, online harassment is a crime. So you insist. You tell them you're there to report a crime. Second, they can't actually refuse to take your evidence, so you physically leave that beautiful, organized file of yours at the station. Once they've taken it, they have to log it. And finally, before you walk out that door, you insist on getting a crime reference number. And that crime reference number, it is absolutely crucial. Think of it as your official receipt. It's the proof that you've lodged a formal complaint. You need it to follow up with the police, and it's completely non-negotiable if you ever decide to take things to a civil court. So don't leave without it.
Okay, so you did it. You filed the report, you've got your crime reference number, nice work. So what happens now? Let's take a look at what you can expect to happen next.
So, in an ideal world, here's how things might play out. The first thing the police might do is issue a warning, either formal or informal, to the person harassing you. A knock-it-off notice. If the harassment keeps going and your evidence file is solid, things can escalate. The suspect could be arrested and charged. And from there, the final step would be setting a court date, or, in some cases, keeping the suspect in custody.
All right, our next section is super important to understand, especially when we're talking about stuff that's been posted online. It's the difference between what the police can do and what a court can do. They're not the same thing.
So this is the million-dollar question, right? You want that awful content taken down. Can the police just force your harasser to do it? Well, the short answer is it's a bit more complicated than that. And this is where the real difference lies. Look at the police's power.
They can request or advise someone to take something down. It's like a very strong suggestion. Now, if the harasser ignores them, that definitely doesn't look good and it helps the criminal case, but the police can't physically make them delete it. A court, though, that's a whole different ballgame. A court can issue an order. That's not a request, it's a command. And if someone breaches a court order, that's a separate criminal offense all on its own, and that has real teeth.
So think about this whole process. It's about moving from feeling helpless to being empowered, right? From documenting every single piece of evidence to understanding exactly what your rights are, you now have the tools. The knowledge is in your hands. So that leaves one last question, and this one's for you. What is your next step to regain control?